Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We're back with another In Context. Today's October 5th, 2025. I was going to title this podcast Trump's 20-point plan. We're going to discuss it. What does it have regarding implications for Gaza? But I think a better and more appropriate title after reading the 20 points is Trump's Antics in Gaza, because this 20-point plan is quite frankly a joke. But we're going to discuss this and other things regarding this, what's going on in Gaza and his plans. I leave it to you, Ahab.
Thank you. So let's start by just describing what we have. So about 10 days ago, Trump met at the UN with his colonial representatives in the Middle East, plus token quote-unquote Muslim representatives from Pakistan and Indonesia. I think the inclusion of Pakistan and Indonesia was meant because in the Western mind, when they say Muslim, this is what comes to the mind, Pakistan and Indonesia, not Bangladesh, for example, for whatever reason, but that's beside the point. I also think that it has to do with the proposals on the table of bringing a so-called Muslim staffed force to help Israel enforce its occupation of Gaza. And that would require soldiers from countries with armies, aka Pakistan and Indonesia. So, but these guys are, just token. The real players here with Trump are his, representatives in Egypt and the UAE and his on again, off again ally in Turkey and the other gang. Initially, according to those who met with him, they were talking about something that is feasible, actually, of stopping war, releasing hostages, and some sort of non-Hamas entity that runs Gaza. By the way, aside from all of the rubbish about, well, we're going to establish this and we're going to establish that, unless there is a military force, external military force that is explicitly occupying Gaza, whatever authority that runs Gaza, no matter what it calls itself, is going to be Hamas. So after all of this war, Gaza is, for good or bad, is with Hamas. So it doesn't really matter, and they have the arms. So it doesn't really matter what you call the thing, unless there is a foreign military power that is occupying Gaza directly, it's going to be Hamas. Now, Hamas, that's what Hamas is saying, well, we are not interested in governing because it doesn't matter what you call it, it's going to be them. Anyway, so to get back to the discussion, so initially that's what he agreed with them, meaning I'm going to give you guys all what you want. Then on Sunday he met with on Monday he met with Netanyahu. On Sunday Netanyahu sat with Trump's representatives, Kushner and Witkoff, who are Zionists, and essentially wrote his dream agreement. And on Monday Trump just stamped it and announced it. This is, Trump calls it his 20 points or his Trump plan. This is Netanyahu's dreams. So it goes even beyond what he agreed to in previous agreements that he then went and broke down. This looks like madness, but I think there is some method to this madness. And you could see it in the fact that, well, when Hamas responded by saying, well, we can't say no, but we're not going to say yes, we could discuss. Trump came out and said, well, take the win. Yeah, they agreed to what I want. Well, that's not what happened. And then Netanyahu comes and says, well, and I agree to do whatever I want to do to achieve the vision of Trump. So these guys are talking past each other. Hamas says, we're never going to surrender. And Trump says, they agree to what I want, which is they surrender. And then Netanyahu says, well, and actually I'm going to achieve what Trump wants, which is do what I want, keep doing what I want, which is kill people in Gaza. So it looks like they are, the latest is the Israeli defense minister saying, and if Hamas doesn't do everything we want, then we are going to or relaunch our attack. We haven't stopped anything. So we are living in mania land where actually words have stopped having meanings. The meaning of words is only through context. Meaning, once you figure out who is saying what at what point in time, you only then understand what they're saying. But words on their own have no meaning anymore. That mania actually, I think, reflects two things. First, right now, there is something else going behind or under the table. There seems to be some sort of agreement between Trump and his minions in the Middle East to deliver something that Israel can call victory. And in the process, he is allowing Netanyahu to strut around and claiming, I have achieved everything possible. I have conquered the whole Middle East. On the other hand, that is not workable. So as a result, he seems to be going to deliver him less than that. And his minions in the Middle East see this as a way out. Sub-point on this. The minions in the Middle East right now are running scared with the exception of UAE. So the UAE is still fully in the Zionist camp with Israel. And you can see that clearly from the proposition of their employee Blair as the colonial governor of Gaza. On the other hand, all the Arab Zionists, the other Arab Zionists are outside that camp. They seem to be actually scared of their Israeli allies. I mean, specifically Egypt and Jordan, who are scared after what the attacks of Israel and Iran and Syria. They think that this could come their way as well. I think Saudi Arabia is in a halfway house between both sides, between the UAE side that is still in alliance with Israel and the Jordan, Egypt side of the Zionist camp that is scared of Israel right now. So those guys and the regular traditional colonial types in Qatar and the nationalists in Turkey figure out that actually what Netanyahu wants and what Trump has proposed on behalf of Netanyahu is not just not workable, it's dangerous to them. Because it will antagonize their people, and if they enforce it, it will expose them to a lot of reaction. So these people are positively trying to muzzle out of this spot. One final point I'd like to point. This ridiculous state of affairs where words stopped having meaning, I think is a reflection of the fact that Trump has managed to damage the international colonial order significantly because he has damaged the credibility of the imperial US. So nobody buys US words. Even his own Congress doesn't believe him. Democrats last week in negotiations with Trump said, well, we can't accept just promises from Trump that he is going to do whatever we agreed on in the budget because he has already broken his word and tried to rewrite the budget after it passed. His own Congress doesn't believe him, let alone his allies, let alone his enemies. That, in my opinion, is a bright spot in a lot of darkness. Joseph.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said, I agree with in terms of, in principle. I really think what's going on here is like Trump's logic is if he can just make Netanyahu thinks he won, this will all end. So it's about bullshitting. And I mean that in like the social scientific Frank guy named Felix Frankfurt. I think it was Frankfurt or Wesley Frankfurt. He wrote a book called I'm Bullshit. And basically that's what is trying to happen right now. He's trying to, like a used car salesman, convince Netanyahu that this is the best car in the lot, and you ain't gonna find nothing better, and you ain't gonna get a better deal than from me. You better buy it now. You better buy it now. This is what you want, and he's gonna push that until he thinks Netanyahu is gonna finally believe this narrative. But the thing is I don't think that's gonna happen. I think Netanyahu knows exactly what he wants, and he's not stupid like Trump. I think he will placate Trump to the extent that to get him off his back for a few minutes, and then he'll continue doing what he seeks to do. And I think the point you made about words not having meaning under Trump, let's be honest, this has been going on for a long time, going back to Obama specifically with the red lines on chemical weapons in Syria, right? Remember that? That also, those words also had no meaning because Obama did nothing to Assad when he did use chemical weapons on the Syrian people. So this isn't like brand new in American politics, but to the extent of just like out just like lying directly so obviously that nobody even believes even the most basic things you say is something relatively unique and new. And I think this is just a big game of smoke and mirrors and bluffing. And both sides responded in a way that is similar in the sense that they're both saying they accept the deal and then they're explaining what they understand the deal to be on their terms, and which is not what the deal is at all. So you have Trump, who I don't even think knows what the deal really is, and the other two who are responding to it in a very strategically calculated way. That in some ways, I've been reading some reports that the Hamas response was very, very clever because it does put the ball in Netanyahu's court to sort of, it's the onus is on him now because, as Marco Rubio 2 hours ago just posted, like Netanyahu has to stop bombing now. Like they can't just keep bombing. They're still bombing. I mean, 67 people killed last night or this morning. I just read, clearly this isn't over. So, this is the worst ceasefire or peace agreement I've ever seen since the same amount of people, if not more, have died in the last 48 hours since its announcement and before it was announced at all. So I think that there's a lot of bluffing and cat and mousing going on, and Trump's angry response to Netanyahu sort of indicates that he's sort of aware of this. And I really think that, going back to Trump's whole mindset of if you believe that you can make it happen, or if you want to will something enough to happen, it will happen. And I think that's what he's seeing this negotiation process as, is that Netanyahu, and he will get his Nobel Prize and everyone will agree to it and we live happily ever after. That's just not how this works. And I think I don't see any long-term agreement coming out of this. I think that there'll be excuses from both sides why each side couldn't stop doing what they were doing, just prolonging the conflict. So, I think this will, but both sides will continue to say, "Oh no, we're trying to implement things," but I don't think either side's going to really give in on any of the key demands that the other side has. And I think I don't know. I don't see this is going anywhere. The next 48 hours will be very interesting to see what happens when Trump realizes that this isn't going as he actually envisioned it. That's my take. I could be totally wrong. Who knows? 48 hours from now, we might have world peace. I don't know. But to me, I don't think that's going to happen. That's just based on what I've seen so far.
The fact that Trump to essentially agree to whatever his minions in the Middle East wanted, which is something they can live with, and then agreed to whatever Netanyahu wanted, and then agreed to Hamas agreeing to whatever it feels it can agree to, tells you that essentially he is bluffing everyone on site, and he is willing to give you whatever you want to look like winning. The important thing to him is to look like winning. That's about it. Now, let's pull back and look strategically at what's going on here. I think as far as Trump is concerned, whether Israel gets to eliminate every single last person in Gaza or not doesn't really matter. What matters to him is there is an ongoing political crisis in the Middle East. He needs to shut this down so he can get on with his business in setting Europe against Russia in Europe and containing China. So that's all he's concerned about. Displacing and evicting Palestinians is not accepted because that is going to even inflame the crisis of further. So that's why he is not allowing it. But eliminating every single last person is not a problem to him. So what he's trying to do is just to contain an inflammation. That's all. Netanyahu thinks that he has an opportunity to bite as much as he can. And it seems that he is reaching the limits of as much as he can, because essentially Trump is telling him, well, this is enough. I need to move on to do other things. That's about it. So Trump, to let Netanyahu down nicely or give him something he can brag about, is trying to give him the appearance of complete total victory. Netanyahu is getting a lot out of this colonial deal, but he is trying to give him everything to look like total victory. Trump also thinks that he shares in this victory. Actually, Trump sometimes appears to be trying to steal Netanyahu's stardust. He is this cheap and crazy. So that's what we have. The point about governments bluffing that Joseph made, yeah, sure. Governments lying, yeah, sure. That's standard in the colonial nomenclature. But Trump is taking things to a place where everybody is talking past everybody else, and everybody sees that. It's open and public and obvious without even justification. So back when Obama, made his false promise, well, he made justifications of, well, we have managed to stop the Syrian government from repeating this crime, and we sent the chemical weapons the inspectors to make sure that wouldn't happen again. Made some stuff to pretend that he wasn't lying, but Trump isn't trying, and it's so consistent and pervasive, his lies and his inconsistency of his word, that everybody perceives that. So inside the US, outside the US, in his relationship with Europe, in his relationship with the colonies, it's everywhere. So that, I'm saying this is actually a bright point, because the US is the organizing order of the colonial regime. And the fact that it loses credibility damages the regime. That is, in my mind, good news for all the oppressed everywhere.
In some ways, it's good news, but at the same time, if the oppressed don't have a plan of action on their own, how to take advantage of the situation or how to use the situation in a way that's going to benefit them, then it really doesn't mean all that much at all. It's just sad time wasted. It's an opportunity wasted, because you're right. Like, there's sort of a golden opportunity for a real reorganization and a recalibration of power that benefits the Ummah. But I don't see that happening at all. If anything, I feel like the decisions being made by some of the political leaders are making it even worse. So despite having an opportunity, the things they're doing are putting them even further in the box than they were before, which is really catastrophic and sad. But again, one of the things people are wondering is, like, as we make the point, Netanyahu needs some kind of conflict, some kind of kinetic active conflict to maintain his power. Like, what does he look to next? Is he going to go back to Iran? Is he going to go somewhere else? Like, if this Gaza does slow down, the first thing I keep reading is if the second this war ends, he's going to be indicted and put in jail. So, like, if he needs this conflict to survive, I don't know. Is there? Obviously, we all want to see this genocide end and the people of Gaza have peace. But is there any real strategy for containing Netanyahu and preventing him from, engaging in more regional conflicts and starting more trouble? And I haven't seen any indication of that whatsoever. So, because from what I'm reading, Iraq is really close to blowing back up. Right, a lot of problems right now, and I've been reading about the Shia parts of Basra are a total mess. I mean, they're as bad as they've been ever in terms of lacking electricity and water. Iran's leadership or control of those regions is even more, incompetent and just detrimental to the good of the people than ever. And that's the next place that could easily blow back up into civil war. So I don't know. I mean, what do you see? What do you see coming out of all of this 6 months down the road? If, let's say, this does come to some kind of solution or peaceful ending in Gaza.
So this is not going to end. What's going to happen is the struggle is going to take a new shape. And the new shape now would be what is going to be the status of Gaza, and what is going to be the status of the West Bank, which has degraded a lot in the last 2 years. And Netanyahu would keep saying, I'm the greatest leader ever that has achieved great victories. I have done things that was never possible or thought possible before. So he's not in a bad position. The other point to realize is the problem here is not Netanyahu. It's Israel as a state and the Israeli society. Netanyahu is just a face of an ugly monster. Just a face. He's not the monster. The monster is the whole society. that backs this ugly face. You have a gang that feeds on others' blood and money, and the more it feeds, the more rabid it becomes. It's the cycle is expanding, and the only way it stops, it hits a wall, and its colonial master doesn't want it to hit a wall because when it hit a wall, he just let it loose on the whole region on October 7th. So what that tells the whole region is you are in for something really bad. And the truth is these regimes are going to see the results of what they are doing internally, because the people are now realizing that Israel is not an external threat. The colonial myth that Israel is somebody else's problem is not true anymore. Everyone in the Middle East now realizes that Israel is a local problem in their town, because tomorrow it can bomb their town. So Trump might not realize that, Netanyahu might not realize that, but they have changed the region for good. And what the Arab Spring started, which is realization that this is an ummah, is getting stronger.
I agree with that. I think that in some ways, the idea of this as an ummah has sort of in some ways strengthened, especially in recent years. But still, a lot of work needs to be done to really put that into something more, concrete and more start. I guess
No
the word I'm
debate.
looking for. Yeah, to make it actually some tangible results, right? So like the sentiment is stronger, but we need to start seeing actual on the ground victories of some sort.
Well,
Moral victories aren't enough anymore, right? We need to have something to build. Right?
We need to carry out the intellectual work as well.
Yeah, well, some of us are trying to do that, and it's a tough process. Let me tell you, it's a tough process because carrying out the intellectual work, even if we do the intellectual work now, the way it works, it'll take 15, 20 years for that to filter into everyday minds, right?
Well,
When Foucault was doing his writings, it didn't filter into the masses for 20 years, right? So the intellectuals and the elites were talking about his arguments that have now 1 million citations, literally. But, it took a while for that to filter down. This is how it works with knowledge production, is it stays with the elites for a while before it works its way down. So that's why, it's important to get this kind of stuff, the intellectual work done now, because it's going to take a while to get to the ground level. So I don't know. That's sort of how I feel about that.
I just want to make a point that actually this is not just about Muslims and the Muslim Ummah. The colonial order, the Western colonial order, oppresses humanity as a whole. A lot of non-Muslims also are oppressed, and a lot of non-Muslims look at this and say, well, actually, there might be a chance for something better. We're not alone in this.
Well put. All right, I think we got it.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.